sports review, and we are going to start immediately from Al-Ahram. But before we start, let me first welcome our dear guest live, Enara, our political analyst. Dr. Hala, hello.
Hi.
Very good morning to you. As I said, we do have plenty of headlines as usual, and we are going to start from Al-Ahram online. From Al-Ahram, Al-Sisi reassures the citizens and says tourism shall return to its previous status in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi sends a message of reassurance from the city of Sharm el-Sheikh, confirming that the tourism rate is going to return to its normal as soon as possible after conditions are settled and after reaching agreements with the friendly nations regarding the security measures. The head of state's statements came during his meeting with the number of citizens after performing Friday's prayers in the City of Peace. Taking you to Al-Masri al-Yawm, where the same issue is tackled, Al-Sisi says from Sharm el-Sheikh, tourism shall return better than before. This was after the Friday prayers at Al-Salam Hospital in the Red Sea Resort. Of course, this came after President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met on the sidelines of the Sahara, Sahel Sahara Defense Ministers Summit, which was held for 2 days in the Red Sea Resort. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met on the sidelines with representatives, or to be accurate, the head of delegations from 27 countries who were keen to come and to participate in this summit, the Sen Sad, and also he met with a number of citizens in Sharm el-Sheikh after holding Friday prayers, and he was keen to reassure them that everything is going to be okay, that the tourism rate is going to return as soon as possible to its normal rates in the Red Sea Resort. How do you see this keenness from the head of the state to meet with the people and to listen to their needs, to their problems, to send, as was said here in many of our newspapers, a message to say them, don't worry, tomorrow is going to be better?
Maybe this is not the first time for the president to try to meet the people. It happened many times, and he's now starting to meet all categories of society, starting with intellectuals and media people, to listen to them and know what the people want. He doesn't want only to listen to institutions and security organizations. He wants to listen to the people. What do they need? He wants to send the message of hope to the people at this chaotic situation now after the dollar rise and the rises of many prices. And he wants to reassure his people that he is working hard and Egypt is working hard to regain its status, to regain its power. But it's in a fight. And this will create many problems, and everyone must be aware that we are in a war and we have to stand fast to face whoever is fighting Egypt and to stand ready to sacrifice.
Yes.
We are to sacrifice not only now, I think, for some time to come, to build true, powerful Egypt again. And as concerns tourism, he said that it only needs some discussions with friendly countries, and no situation is perpetual. It must end. What's happening in tourism in Egypt now must end, especially after seeing that terrorism is striking in Western Europe, in the United States, everywhere where they have very advanced security forces and intelligence services, but they couldn't stop terrorism.
And if we are speaking about terrorism or about the fight against terrorism in Sinai, this is to some extent acceptable when it comes to the nature of Sinai. It's a desert, it's mountainous. But what happened in Brussels, for example, it's in the airport and in the metro station, in one of the metro stations. I mean, when it comes to terrorism, then it doesn't make a difference where we are talking about.
Yes.
If it is in a European capital or it is in Sinai. But the case in Sinai is totally different according to the nature of the place, of the scene.
Of course, but the reaction is different when
Yes.
it happens in Egypt and when it happens in the West. When it happens in Egypt and our security forces and military forces target terrorists, they say, we hear cries about human rights. Of course, human rights is something we all respect, but it must be respected in the West too. When we are in a war, there are some...
I just want to
How do you
say
say-
that the military personnel are also human beings.
Yes, of course, when they are killed, the West must take notice that these are human beings who are killed by terrorists.
To echo what you were saying, ma'am, let's talk more about the 17 articles for military and security cooperation which were announced yesterday by General Sidqi Subhi, Minister of Defense, in the final day of the Sahel-Sahara Summit. From Al-Ahram front page, we read, Cairo to be the center of combating terrorism in the Sahel and Sahara region. 17 articles for military and security cooperation in Sharm el-Sheikh declaration at the end of the activities of the Sahel and Sahara Defense Ministers Conference, agreeing on mechanisms to prevent conflicts and a protocol for the Permanent Council for Peace and Security. The same issue is tackled in Al-Yawm al-Saba, where we continue to read. Al-Sisi approves 1,000 military scholarships for African countries. Subhi announces an agreement on security cooperation. Defense ministers announced the 17 articles concerned with combating terrorism. During the gathering, the ministers of defense adopted a document of mechanisms to prevent, to manage, and to settle conflicts, which will be reviewed by the community's executive council during its upcoming meeting. And to continue on this, we do have a special comprehensive report.
Defense ministers and officials from 27 Arab and African states on Friday agreed to bolster cooperation on counter-terrorism in a meeting held at the Egyptian Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. According to the draft resolution read out by Egypt's Defense Minister Sidqi Subhi, the community of Sahel-Sahara states SENSAD members agreed on strengthening cooperation in counter-terrorism. The resolution, which will be presented to presidents of the member states, emphasized intelligence sharing and joint border patrols. As the two-day conference wrapped up in Sharm el-Sheikh, Subhi said that the ministers also agreed to set up a counter-terrorism center headquartered in Cairo. Several of the bloc's members are locked in conflicts with militant groups who have killed thousands of people in attacks across the region and taken control of some territories. After calling for a moment of silence for victims of attacks, Subhi said in a speech on the first day of the conference that terrorism and extremism represent a strong threat that has spread across all continents. The conference is the fifth SENSAD defense ministers meeting since the bloc's founding in 1998. The group was founded in part to promote a free trade area among member states.
Welcome back. Choosing Egypt to be the center or the headquarters for this center or this entity to fight terrorism. Ma'am, don't you think that this is a message from those 27 countries to say that now Egypt is having or gained already a lot of experience in combating terrorism, and to prove that our leadership's points of view or vision regarding terrorism as a global phenomena proved to be the correct way or the right way to look at this phenomena?
Of course, and it's the only normal thing. Egypt is at the center of war against terrorism. It has been at war against terrorism even before other African countries begin their problems with terrorism, and it has been gaining experience and victories over terrorists.
Yes.
And the most important thing is that these 27 countries understood that they must cooperate, they must exchange experience, they must exchange information, they must help each other to block the way in front of terrorism, of terrorists. They cannot escape from Egypt to another African country, for
This
example,
was another
and resources.
They organized the cross-border crime,
Yes.
which is another phenomenon now. It's not new, but now it's increasing, unfortunately.
And arms trafficking and human trafficking, all of this.
And on an equal importance, to prevent the intervention politically in any internal affairs, to be accurate, the political affairs of any country. How do you see this?
It has been always on the African arena. They always said that no country must interfere in another country's internal affairs.
Yeah.
But this is different from cooperating and exchanging experience to fight the same threat, threatening all African countries. And they don't want outside world, the United Nations or the West or the United States to come out saying that it's coming to defend this country or that country, to defend the democracy or to defend the human rights, which they completely forget when the money bag opens.
Yes. And democracy, it was proved that democracy cannot be imposed on anyone by anyone. And when it comes to experience on the ground, the NATO campaign on Libya, and how is Libya doing now?
In fact, democracy is very important, but it needs establishing certain institutions and it needs certain criteria to be built
it cannot
and
be
to be
by
found.
force. How the word democracy and force can be combined in one sentence? This is hilarious.
For the West, it's possible, of course, because they don't see any form of rule unless it's completely like their style of rule. There are different styles of rule, and they tried the same with China. China was moving slowly but surely on this path of democracy. We cannot say it is like the West, but it is moving step by step, and this is more stable than changing the regime completely and suddenly.
Drastically.
Yes.
To Al-Ahram front page once again, where we continue to read, the director of the National Security reveals the mystery of killing of Regini. Killers of the Italian youth Regini fall. General Abu Bakr says 300 police personnel from the National Security revealed the mysteries of the incident. The same issue is tackled in another daily, which is Al-Masri al-Yawm, where we continue to read, the crisis of Regini intensifies after discovering his belongings. Italy would demand the truth. The same issue in Al-Yawm al-Saba. After the Ministry of the Interior announced the death of a gang that used to rob foreigners after discovering the belongings of the Italian, the key to the riddle of the death of Regini in the hands of Russia, the sister of the prime suspect says, my brother came 2 days ago and gave me the bag. I didn't know what the bag was containing. This is a top story these days. A gang which the investigators or the general prosecutions, the investigations collected around them said that those were all the time posing in policemen, and they were specialized in robbing and abducting foreigners. When after a shootout, the police personnel discovered the personal belongings of Regini were in one of the flats of those members of this gang. But what's going on now is full cooperation between the Egyptian investigators and their Italian counterparts. Ma'am, unfortunately, there are people who are doubting the story and said that this is only to settle this issue and to keep the Egyptian-Italian relations okay. Why there are all the time people or some voices trying, unfortunately, to devaluate the forces, the efforts by the police forces, or to de-evaluate the efforts exerted by Egypt in general to fulfill its promises, not only to Egyptians, to the others outside?
In fact, sometimes our security forces committed some mistakes, but that doesn't mean they are that stupid to kill this Italian researcher and just leave it in the street. This is not the work of our security forces. Anyone who can read the whole picture can easily understand that it's not the work of Egyptians.
Yes.
It's a work hostile intelligence service. Maybe they used Egyptian gangsters. Maybe they are using some elements inside Egypt. But it's the work of hostile intelligence services.
Yes.
It's not in the interest of Egypt to kill such a person. And they thought that this will kill relations between Egypt and Italy after the gas exploration that was announced, and that will turn everything upside down.
There was a high-ranking Italian official who was here to meet with President al-Sisi along with a high-profile business delegation. It was in specific at that time. Is this a coincidence?
That's what I was just saying. Interests and business are on one side, and politics and security and human rights are on the other side.
Yeah.
Business understands business.
Yes.
Human rights are for other peoples to say, and the West is exploiting this issue against Egypt all the time, though they don't respect human rights when it comes to them, when they are threatened.
Yes.
Everyone knows what happened in France after the attacks in France, and what we see now in Belgium, and in
Germany,
the West,
yes, in France,
in the West in general, and in the
by the
United
way.
States, yes.
The last item we choose for today, it's about the war against terrorism which is taking place in Sinai. Scores of terrorists killed and tens others are wounded in a big military operation in northern Sinai. The army announced that at least 70 terrorists in clashes in Sinai were killed in a combating terrorism attack. Army spokesperson Brigadier Mohammed Samir said the piece of news on his official Facebook page. We have more details in the coming report.
Egypt's army killed 60 militants on Friday in clashes in North Sinai. The army spokesman reported the news on his official Facebook page. The army spokesman added that the army counter-terrorism units backed by the Air Force on Friday killed 60 terrorists, wounded another 40 and destroyed 27 four-wheel pickup trucks south of Rafah and Sheikh Zuwaid in North Sinai. Since 2013, after Mohamed Morsi was deposed following a popular revolution against him and against his rule, militants' attacks on the army and police have persisted. An army campaign against them is currently underway. The local affiliate of a militant group claimed an attack last week on a police checkpoint near North Sinai's provincial capital of Al Arish that killed 15 policemen.
Welcome back. Ma'am, the war in Sinai is moving from a situation to the other, proving that the military there, the military operations, the army is doing its best to cleanse Sinai from terrorists. How do you see the developments?
In fact, our forces, security forces and military forces are accomplishing victory after victory. But this war in Sinai is a war against Egypt. They thought that they can destroy our military. They can destroy Egypt through terrorism. But now they understand that terrorism cannot be contained in one region. If it's stabilized, if it's enforced, if it's given force and resources, it will spread everywhere. And it knows no master and obeys no master.
Amen to that. Dr. Hala and Enara, thank you very much for your input, ma'am, and have a very good day.
Thank you.
For this, we come to the end of the press digest of this episode of our breakfast show today. But right after the short break, we are going to return back with the remaining part of our program.